No changes to our agenda. We will then go to item number 7. Ms. Crossan, you're up.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Today I'm presenting Agenda Item 7, Stantec Consulting Contract Amendment for the 91 Express Lanes. There we go. This amendment will help us to address feedback we have received from customers in the community about conditions on the 91 Express Lanes and demonstrates our commitment to continuous improvements on the 91 corridor. While there is no magic formula to fixing these issues, we're committed to doing everything within our means to minimize congestion. These improvements take time, and there are processes and due diligence that we must follow, pursuant to state laws, regulations, and stewardship of the public's and our customers' money. In this presentation, I will discuss the analysis and interim solutions we have performed since opening the express lanes on March 20th of 2017, and what we will do to prepare for forthcoming improvements. The express lanes opened, as I said, on March 20th of 2017 with much greater demand than expected. As you can see from the graph on this slide, the number of actual trips has exceeded projected trips since opening by as much as 150%. The much greater than expected traffic volume required immediate adjustments to the opening day toll rate schedule. Stantec has supported staff with the review of traffic volumes and impact of toll rate adjustments. The 91 Express Lanes toll policy was based on a level of service anticipated for a 2-lane capacity of 3,200 vehicles per hour. The premise for establishing tolls based on a 2-lane capacity was modeled after the OCTA 91 Express Lanes toll policy. The east end of the RCTC Express Lanes includes the transition from 2 lanes to 2 single lanes in the eastbound direction and 2 single lanes to 2 lanes in the westbound direction. The higher than expected traffic volumes and heavier usage of the single lane segment through to McKinley has created congestion where the 2-lane segments and single lane McKinley segments intersect. Eastbound express lanes at the 91-15 split experience intermittent backup, Mondays and Tuesdays of up to a half a mile. These backups come in pockets, do not typically last for more than 15 minutes at a time. On Wednesdays and Thursdays, the backup extends for a mile, again not lasting for more than 15 minutes at a time. On Fridays, the backup lasts between 1 and 3 hours and extends for up to a mile. After substantial review of video footage, it was apparent that many motorists were waiting until the last chance to get into the left lane for the 15 and the right lane for the 91. Stantec was tasked with reviewing video footage and assisting staff with the identification of possible improvements to increase vehicle throughput and speeds. In an effort to quickly educate customers and improve the flow of traffic, changeable message signs were put in place. An email was sent to both 91 and TCA customers to inform them to use the left lane for the 15 and the right lane for the 91. The project team immediately set out to add additional directional information to overhead signs, added an additional overhead sign, and put markers on the pavement. It also became apparent that the eastbound 15-91 split required monitoring to determine single lane capacity. As the measurement of single lane volumes was not anticipated, changes to the toll system reporting and secondary counting devices had to be deployed. Stantec supported the quick deployment of the counting devices in the single lane portions of the project and has been analyzing the data on a regular basis. With this additional information, it was determined that during peak hours, the number of vehicles using the McKinley single segment is between 60 and 70% of total traffic. The inequity in volumes between the 15 and the 91 supported the use of single lane traffic volumes to set toll rates and manage demand. Stantec developed an interim toll policy for the purpose of addressing the east end congestion. Staff and Stantec have met weekly since the opening of the express lanes to review hourly traffic volumes from the preceding week and adjust toll rates accordingly. After the physical improvements were made and toll rates adjusted, it was noticed that vehicles traveling through the 91 single lane segment leave a long headway between vehicles. It is important to understand what causes this long headway so vehicle throughput in the single lane segment could be increased. This amendment will allow Stantec to perform model simulations to evaluate the impact of possible improvements in both the express lanes and the GP lanes to increase throughput. Despite placing the required signage prior to opening according to the manual uniform traffic control devices, customers were weaving between the left and right lane at the last minute. These photos show the addition of a yellow arrow to the 91 sign on the right of your slide. This photo shows the additional sign that was placed 2 miles at the point of the split. There were already signs at 1.5 miles and 1/2 mile, so this was an additional sign. The above picture shows the pavement markers added to, again, direct customers to their designated lane well before the split. This photo shows the doubling up of channelizers in order to provide, this is after the split point for the McKinley customers, to allow them to believe there was a bigger buffer between themselves and the GP lanes to help speed up their speeds and decrease their headway between vehicles. Now we'll move on to the westbound. During the morning peak period, the McKinley entrance backs up. We have received customer and community input about improving this access point, and we certainly agree that a solution needs to be evaluated. Mondays through Thursday, the backup extends for 1/2 mile and lasts for 3 to 4 hours. On Friday, the backup is for less than an hour. 2 observations have been made about the westbound entrance. 1, customers slow upon approaching the entrance, which causes the backup at the entrance. 2, motorists are cutting into the line of customers waiting to enter, causing further slowdown at the entry point. To address the first cause, the buffer zone where vehicles from the 91 and 15 meet was extended to reduce possible friction at the point where they join. Initially, the auxiliary lane for entrance from the 91 was extended by 1,500 feet to reduce delays in the GP lane caused by vehicles merging into the express lanes. Later, the entrance to the express lanes was moved back an additional 1,500 feet in an attempt to further reduce the express lanes and GP friction. None of those 3 changes appear to have improved the situation. We have increased and continue to increase toll rates for the westbound morning peak to reduce the backup. Staff is looking for Stantec to perform micro-simulation for possible improvements to improve the westbound entrance vehicle throughput. To address the cutting in line of customers at the entrance, RCTC directed CHP under our enforcement contract to be present in the shoulder at the auxiliary lane for a 3-week period. Again, we did not notice a difference in driver behavior. This is a photo of the extended buffer for the westbound entrance to help with the conflict where the vehicles come together from the 15 and the 91. Lessons learned so far. The 91 traffic is seasonal, and with only 8 months of traffic data, we have not been able to establish definitive traffic patterns which will help with the anticipation of changes in traffic volume and the setting of tolls over a long period of time. As mentioned previously, managing demand of single-lane capacity is critical to congestion management. It is difficult to determine drivers' response to proposed changes. Demand elasticity appears minimal during peak periods. At the June 2017 SR91 Joint Advisory Committee meeting, it was requested that staff return with information regarding the performance of the 91 corridor following the completion of the corridor improvement project. Staff is working to gather the information and is scheduled to return to the SR91 Joint Advisory Committee in March of 2018. Staff will provide the Commission with the SR91 Joint Advisory Report prior to the Advisory Committee meeting. Stantec has been involved in both the planning and the operation of the 91 express lanes. Stantec brings detailed knowledge of the corridor through their work with RCTC, OCTA, and TCA. Their intimate knowledge of the assumptions contained in the traffic and revenue study are important to assure that the express lanes exceed the long-term traffic and revenue projections. While many adjustments have been made in the 8 months the express lanes have been operating, staff believes that additional opportunities exist to increase the express lanes throughput during peak periods. These opportunities will require capital investment and planning. Before undertaking these activities, Stantec will evaluate the impact on the express lanes and the GP lanes through work outlined in the amendment. Today we are requesting that you approve Amendment Number 7 to the Agreement 1031-099 with Stantec, authorize the Chair or Executive Director to execute the amendment, approve an increase to the fiscal year 2017-18 budget in the amount of $635,000, and forward this item to the Commission for final action. That ends the report. I'm happy to take any questions. I've got support behind me if we have engineering questions.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Supervisor Jeffries.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No single item generates as much hostility from the public as compared to what's happening on the 91 and the 15. Arguably one of the greatest transportation failures of modern man is that interchange all the way out to Green River. Was Stantec? You just indicated they were involved in the initial design of the traffic flow for that interchange, and if they were, why would we use them again?
No, Stantec is the consulting firm that helped with the traffic and revenue projections that supported the financing. So they did not design the road, but they helped evaluate how many vehicles we should put through to ensure that we can pay the debt service. And so they have intimate knowledge of the assumptions that went into our projections, and they also do modeling. But let me ask David, I'm sorry. They didn't do modeling for the original.
I believe our executive director has some comments as well.
Okay, thanks, Ann.
In terms of the 91 project, Stantec, as Jennifer mentioned, has been responsible for the traffic and revenue studies for the corridor. In terms of establishing the project itself, that was the result of an extensive plan that was put in place, the 91 major investment study that had a suite of different improvements for the 91 corridor. The project that we built is but one of the many projects that were included in that major investment study. The project that we built, which is added 2 additional lanes of traffic, still doesn't provide the capacity that's needed on that corridor. This project, when it was developed, was known that it would take us from one level of service of F to another. And as sadly, that is much the case with almost every single project we now build in Riverside County. As soon as we build a project, the traffic is there. We've got congestion almost right back to pre-project levels. So the 91 project has added significant capacity to the 91 corridor. The original plan on that corridor in order to address the traffic volumes was that we needed 22 lanes on the 91 corridor, which we'll never be able to build. So the project that we just opened, that it's unfortunate that there's a perspective that the project is a failure, in that project is an investment of $1.4 billion into a corridor. We've added additional lanes of capacity. More needs to be done. Where that money comes from to build additional capacity, I'm not sure. But the project in and of itself is a significant and important project. And whether or not we will ever be able to build a Corridor A, which is another 4 to 6 lane corridor, or the tunnel between Riverside County and Orange County, I don't know where the money will ever come from. But the project that we built is operated. Yes, it needs revisions at some of the entrances and exit points of the toll facilities. But the project that we've designed and built is working as it was intended, although not to the satisfaction of those who travel that corridor. That corridor is always going to be congested, and we're not going to be able to build our way out of it.
Well, and if I may continue, it is not working as it envisioned on the 15. The 15 used to start backing up at Cahauco. It now starts backing up in the city of Lake Elsinore at Lake Street. And it has resulted in a massive failure for the movement of commuters in the morning. So much so that you now have commuters getting off the 91, going into the Corona, getting back on at Ontario just to try and get back into the toll lanes, backing the 15 up all the way to Lake Elsinore. It is a failure in that valley, a terrible engineering failure. If this company is going to be able to turn that around, I'm all for it. But if this company is going to spend $600,000 and not turn it around, what's the point of spending the money? I mean, we need solutions. We need changes. You have a quarter mile to get into the toll lanes on the 15 when there's a mile and a half of pavement that is not available to get onto the toll lane. So I don't understand this. We've got to do something. And if these people are the right people, I'm all on board. But if they're just going to come back with an invoice and we're going to live with the same thing, I don't need to show my support for this. I apologize for my frustration, but it is worse than it has ever been on the 15, worse.
Okay, and Supervisor, I understand your frustration, and I hear your frustration, I understand it, and I hear the frustration being expressed by people who travel the I-15 and the 91 corridors. Stantec is a company that does traffic and revenue projections. They do traffic modeling. They can make recommendations about what may or may not make changes along that corridor. Stantec is not going to be able to come to the congestion on the I-15 and on State Route 91 and say, here's a silver bullet, and if you just change this striping, the congestions will be relieved. We need the modeling that they're going to do in order to be able to tell us what the results will be. If we make a change to striping or if we make a change to an entrance, what will the impact be? They can tell us that, but Stantec is not going to be able to come forward and say, if you do X, you will relieve all of the congestion on I-15 and on the 91. The project that we built has pushed the bottleneck somewhere else. And with every project we build, it's going to do the same thing. So Stantec isn't going to be able to provide all of the answers that you're seeking. But they will be able to provide us with the information that we need so this commission can make decisions about what further investments you're willing to make.
Okay. Thank you. City Menifee?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions, informational only at this point. The traffic congestion times that you had, it was 2 to 3 hours at some point, and it was less than an hour. I don't know if you can go back to that slide.
Sorry, trying to find the right one.
That's okay.
So in the westbound morning, the backup goes over a 3 to 4 hour period, but it doesn't last for 3 to 4 hours. It's kind of in pockets. And then Monday through Thursdays, well, Monday and Wednesday are distinctly different. Monday and Tuesday are distinctly different than Wednesday and Thursday as traffic builds from the week, and Friday is different.
And Friday, the time shifts because people are usually working half days and leaving early, that type of thing, so those time frames shift.
Westbound morning is pretty good in the morning on Fridays. It's the I'm sorry, I missed the first slide on the eastbound. It's the eastbound afternoons and Thursday afternoons, which is our biggest challenge, other than the westbound mornings.
Now, is the same type of congestion on the toll roads as compared to being off the toll roads and on the free side?
Yes, the GP lanes are, so westbound, let's just talk about westbound. Westbound, the GP lanes are at the same point stopped. And that's why people are waiting in line to get in the express lane, because once they get in, they get to go by everybody in the GP lanes. So, by raising tolls, we're kind of pushing them out into the GP lanes, which is something we've struggled with. We're not necessarily making it better for anybody by that. We're just making the people that are paying have a better wait and trip.
So I guess what I'm alluding to here is that if Stantec or some other company comes in and does a further analysis, I stand with Mr. Jeffries on this. It should be toward a solution-based, where, how can we improve that to a certain level to balance out the traffic between the paying lanes and the non-paying lanes. Before I retired, that was my thoroughfare, going back through Orange County and Riverside and San Diego. So, I would weigh and measure when I'm going to jump on there based upon the cost as well. The higher the cost, that meant there's more traffic. But here's the problem: if people are jumping onto the toll roads and they're paying the premium prices, still standing in line, that's probably another issue where you're going to get some contentious. So, and then the seasonal, is that because of schools being out in the summertime, that type of thing?
Yeah, I mean, basically since we've opened, we've been dealing with holidays and then the summer and then September back to traffic with a peak, and now we had another holiday, so we're having a hard time getting a toll rate schedule that works, week in and week out. And that's why we're meeting every Monday, and we go through every hour of the day where we don't have level of performance above B. And we're going through them, and we're analyzing it with Stantec and kind of looking at what the reaction of a prior toll rate adjustment is. So it's hard to let it sit and let people to react to something. The other thing we've been looking at is the frequency of the traveler. They're not everyday travelers, and so we're trying to figure out what does impact people. It takes time.
I believe those everyday travelers. That's a commuter thoroughfare there. That's heavy commuting. So you do have an educated clientele moving there. So, because they do it every single day, whether they want to or not.
Well, I was going to add, they may not be everyday travelers within the toll system, but they're probably everyday travelers on the freeway itself.
Like I said, they're toggling back and forth. Do I pay the $10 or do I travel in inconvenience and then save the money? Because I've got to do it every day. So, if it's $10 each way, that's $20. That's quite a bit of chunk of change every month. Anyway, thank you. That was just information for me.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
City of Corona?
I guess my challenge is that we opened 8 months ago, and now we're going to do this study for 6 more months. And as Supervisor Jeffrey said, the commuters are screaming. You cannot function properly on that roadway. And so we're going to delay this 6 more months to do a study. And I realize that Caltrans has to work with us. We have to get permission to make any changes. I understand that. But 6 months is an awful long time to put our commuters coming up from, Elsinore and further south through Corona. Many of them are at their wits' end. And it just is not a good scene, and I think we have to do something in shorter than 6 months. And I know it takes time for a study, but that is, it just is too long.
So we've been talking a lot about what the potential options are related to some of the changes we could make on the corridor. As Jennifer went through, she's listed kind of the low-hanging fruit, the things that we could do relatively easily to see if the changes would have any impact on drivers. So we've done everything that we can that was easy. And by easy, I mean something that we could do without doing another environmental document for another project, without investing more money in the corridor, significant amounts of money in the corridor. We are at a point now where we've got to update the modeling and go through and run these assessments, because if we start making changes on a corridor without any data to back it up, without looking at what traffic volumes do we have, how many people are in the toll lanes on an average day, how many people are in the general purpose lanes, are the traffic volumes increasing based on what the assumptions had been? If we don't have data upon which to make decisions, then we're guessing. And to go out and invest additional and significant amounts of public money when we're not sure whether it will have an impact or not isn't a recommended course of action. We should be making decisions based on fact and data. And I know people are upset, but I have to reiterate, the kinds of changes we're talking about are relatively minor around the entrances and the exits to the toll lanes. We're not talking about changes to go out and completely reconstruct the 91 corridor. The project on I-15 is going to make some changes, so we've got that project that's under construction right now. But to have a project that's going to extend to the east on the 91 into Riverside, that's another capital project that's not in Measure A. So we'd be starting with a project there. There is no project planned for the 91 between Corona and Orange County in that canyon, there's not a project identified for that. And so the challenge is more and more traffic is flooding onto these freeways, and we can't build our way out of it. So I understand that people want something to be done now, but something to be done now means building more. We've got $1.4 billion that was spent on the 91. Another $500 million is being spent right now on I-15. We are spending enormous amounts of money, and we can't stay ahead of it. So, Commissioner Gibbs at one of our commission meetings said we have to start talking about what we're going to be doing differently, and I think we're going to be doing that at the workshop. We're chasing a solution here that I don't know where the money is going to come from to fix it.
And when we're talking relatively minor changes, I'm wondering why some of those can't be implemented before we spend 6 months studying.
That's my question.
Well, Ann, I'm not sure where the 6 months came from, because we've done some simulations of the money that we had in a recurring
Well, the
contract.
contract's till June of 18.
Oh,
Scope
okay.
of work identifies 4 to 6
Because
months.
that's when the next recurring contract picks up. So this is ready to go. We're ready to start. We've done some
Well, because
simulations.
December is a weird month, talk about seasonal. And so to make any studies in December, that's what, I'm looking at anything significant in January, and I'm telling you, it's not good.
I'm going to call on City of Purple Valley, and then on deck Supervisor Ashley.
Thank you. So I think I have a lot of experience on the 91 and 15 due to where I work, where I live. I commute to Orange County every day, and when I'm visiting my sites, one of them's in Lake Elsinore, so I am back and forth quite a bit. In fact, 13-month-old car has 37,000 miles on it, so I drive quite a bit. I could see some benefits from a company such as Stantec providing some common sense type suggestions, things like this, things that I've noticed on the toll roads. There's been a consistent issue with traffic cutting in and cutting out at the entry and exit points, especially at county line. What they've recently done, whoever's decided to do that, thank you, they added some delineators between the point where you exit and the point where you then come back on. I've noticed several cars that will stay in the toll lane if they're only using the toll lane for one segment, and then they will wait until the entryway, not the exit point, they've passed that, then they're still in the toll lanes, then they'll escape so they don't have to incur another toll, way where it's illegal, way past the double white lines. That happens quite a bit. And getting onto the toll lanes as well, I see quite a bit of an issue. There's a couple things to take into account here. First, you've got a lot of traffic that's heading from 15 southbound, like I do. And we get off the freeway. You can either get off at Ontario or you off the 15 at Ontario, make a U-turn there, so you can get back to take the toll road, or you can get off the 91 at McKinley and do the same thing. Well, when I'm taking the toll road, I recognize the cars that are behind me getting off the freeway. They're in the same left turn, getting back on the freeway. You have a lot of traffic that is then doubling back, adding to the increased flow of traffic trying to get onto the toll roads. Now, we can do a lot of studies, but when the 91 express lanes are built, everything's going to probably change dynamically. We're going to see different flow patterns. We'll have different problems and different issues. So I'm not a proponent of spending a whole bunch of money on something where I think, our own folks can, maybe with a little bit of this modeling that they need, but I'd like to see something pretty quick, decisive, and directed at what we've got. I understand we've got long-term issues, but some of those may feather themselves out over time after the 91 express lane, after the 15 express lane is built. Another quick thing that maybe somebody from staff can provide information on is what exactly is going on when you're going on the 15 South and the general purpose lanes onto the 91 westbound. You funnel in from a 2-lane road to a 1-lane road. That's the actual junction. Then you've got another lane coming off the 91 for the Main Street traffic that wants to exit. Now those 3 lanes have combined into one, and that gets sticky and gets backups occasionally. Then you go and you've got traffic coming off on the right-hand side with the 2 lanes coming off the 91. They're coming off the 15 going northbound to the westbound 91. And then you've got your Main Street. These are all general purpose lanes. Then you've got your Main Street exit. It's got signage above it which appears to have an extra spot for an extra lane and an extra arrow that's covered up. I'm trying to understand what the end result of that will be, and is that going to somehow move traffic a little bit better through that area?
David can come on up. Commissioner, that area is not in its final configuration yet. We are ready to do it. We were asked to delay that because of the holiday season and Christmas shopping. At the first of the year, the contractor will be going out and putting that area in its final configuration with the final lane there. So David can provide a little bit more details.
Yeah, there's actually 2 locations. There's one just a little bit further west as well, where you've seen some recent K-rail been put in place. We've had some settlement in both of those locations, and we've been addressing that settlement with some asphalt overlay work. The settlement has subsided, but as Ann said, we've been waiting until after the holidays to go in and reconstruct that with new concrete pavement. And first weekend in January, we're planning a 55-hour closure of those 2 connectors that feed into that transition road to finish paving that area. And then shortly after that, probably in the February timeframe, we'll be opening up that full capacity. So we've had that in a 3-lane configuration. As you've noted, there'll be 4 lanes when we finally open that.
Okay. Thank you for the update. And thank you for listening to my comments.
Sure, and many of the items that you've raised, those are the locations that we've been monitoring. But the work that Stantec is doing is not only the modeling so that we can look at what the impact would be of potential changes, but they're also looking at some of the pre-construction traffic flow through the area to compare with post-construction. So we're gathering data. So the data that we're gathering here is not the only thing that we are doing. We have, as Jennifer had mentioned, we are monitoring this on a regular basis. There are some other ideas that we have related to what we can do on that corridor. When we have recommendations to bring to you, we will bring them to you as soon as we can. It's probable that those recommended revisions will require additional funding, and we will bring those to you as soon as we have them available. But we do need to have the Stantec work in order to be able to make sure that what we would be recommending has a chance of working.
Supervisor Ashley?
Thank you. I know we all are frustrated by this situation, that's for sure. When we have our retreat in January, perhaps we ought to be looking at the tunnel seriously again. So I think that we're going to look. There's no way you can build our way out of it. No way. Maybe we can tunnel our way out of it. But they'll come and find some reasons why in the world we can't build it. I know they always do. But just look again. Times change. Maybe the development over in Orange County is far enough along now they won't oppose it this time.
Commissioners, we can bring back at the workshop in January and the status of the tunnel analysis and the decisions made by the 91 Advisory Committee to put the tunnel on hold and why they recommended putting it on hold. So we can bring that to the workshop so that the commissioners can be updated on what decisions were made and for what reasons, so we can get direction on how to proceed from there.
Okay.
Yeah, I would concur with that. To bookend his comments, Supervisor Jeffries.
Well, I just want to agree with my colleagues on their level of frustration that this is going to take so long just to come back with potential recommendations that just say, well, open up the ingress and egress points on the toll lanes, which, today we have armchair folks saying, look, it's real simple, just take down some of the delineators and expand the area to allow them to get in sooner rather than waiting till the very last minute. And that seems so simple to me, and it sounds like we've made minor adjustments on our own, but this time we can't make any more adjustments unless we spend $600,000 and wait 6 months for somebody to tell us to make minor adjustments that we've already done in the past. So I don't understand why if there are simple changes out there that traffic engineers can determine today should be done, why would we wait 6 months to make those minor changes? And I recognize this is government. We have to have a study behind a study to understand why something has to be done differently. But it sounds like we didn't pay $600,000 to make minor adjustments that we've already done on the 91. Why are we going to wait if we know there are things we can do? And the example is I hate to bring it back, but is the Ontario 15 interchange area where we have the people getting back on at Ontario, cutting directly across all lanes to immediately get into the toll lane, backing everybody up down the 15 corridor to Lake Elsinore, when there is almost a mile of paved concrete freeway that they cannot access to get into the toll lane. Can't some engineer today determine that, well, maybe we take some restriping out there and take down some delineators, we can open that up. I don't know if it's going to fix things. It's hard to imagine it's going to make things worse. So I'm just looking for some temporary solutions, short-term solutions that might help. And again, taking your point, it might not help. It may keep things just as bad as it is. But yeah, what do you got to lose?
So I apologize that somehow this 6 months, that we're not doing anything for 6 months is part of the conversation. So I apologize for the confusion. The 6 months, it gets us through the end of the fiscal year with funding for Stantec to do whatever modeling work they need to do and whatever scope of services. It's not meant that we were going to take 6 months and come back to you in 6 months and say this is what we're going to do. So I apologize that we weren't clear enough about a timeline here. Stantec is going to have to do continuous work for us for the rest of the year, whether it's for these quick fixes, whether it's for the analysis needed for the 91 Advisory Committee with the pre and post construction work, whether it is the continuous monitoring of the corridor as we come up with modifications that we'll be recommending for the toll rate. Stantec needs to do this ongoing work, and they're going to need to do it through the rest of the year. But that doesn't mean that we have a finish line of 6 months. In 6 months, we're going to study something for 6 months and come back to you with recommendations. So I apologize if I wasn't clear enough in what our intent here is. Stantec is a recurring contract. We need more money in that contract so they can keep going because they're doing a lot more work than they would normally need to do. Some of this, we need their data in order for us to make decisions about what we will recommend for you to consider as changes that need to be made. We are out of low-hanging fruit that we can make, the changes we can make within the contract authorities that we have. Any further changes will need your approval and your agreement to pay for them. And we will come back to you with those as soon as we have recommendations that we can make where we think it makes sense to do so. But I apologize. It was not our intent that 6 months down the road we would come back with some additional
So they could be back to staff with some recommendations in a matter of months.
Yes.
As to things that we could do.
Yes.
And so with
Yes.
that, I mean,
I apologize.
Look, I support this effort. Staff is recommending it. We have to do something. We've got to get something moving there. And so, look, I'm on board. And look, and I respect your opinion. We can't build our way out of the problems we have today. We just don't have the funding. We don't have the land. We have to rethink how Riverside County and all of our cities and our unincorporated territories are going to grow. And are we just building homes to add commuters, or are we building homes to add business and commercial opportunities? Because the path we are on right now, I don't know what's below an F minus, but we're heading that way. So I'll move staff recommendation if it's appropriate.
All right, we have a motion. I have City of Menifee and then City of Corona in the queue. Are your comments still applicable? Okay, if we can try to keep them brief for other items, City of Menifee and then City of Corona.
What would be good to see is, part of this amendment is to have regular updates. I mean, we meet once a month. So once a month, share what studies they've done, when they've completed it, what ideas at that point, so we can start saying, okay, now we're starting to see light at the end of not the tunnel, but the toll road. But it would be good to have that built in so we can get a monthly report as to what's taking place.
Thank you. City of Corona?
To go along with what Mr. Winter said, as you've heard from Supervisor Jeffries and I, we just have so many constituents angry over this whole thing. There's no question that something has to be done, and I am totally supportive, and I'll second the motion to move forward on this. But in the meantime, are you including some of the ideas that are being brought forward, that are being discussed? Are you looking at, like Supervisor Jeffrey mentioned the Ontario situation. I've talked about the Green River and seeing how we can move that bottleneck a little bit further, make the bottleneck go away, whatever it can be. But are you looking at specifics in addition to just, simulating the models? As I said, because we've even had some engineers that have made suggestions. They may or may not work. But are we at least looking at those as being something that could be included in the possibilities?
So, Commissioner, we not only are considering all options being presented to us by the team members, by Caltrans, by our partners at OCTA, by City of Corona staff, but also residents and those who drive the corridor. We have a lot of communication coming in, both online, we've got letters, we've got phone calls coming in, but also just a couple of weeks ago, David Thomas personally met with City of Corona staff as well as representatives of some of the community groups with specific suggestions and ideas. We've been talking to Caltrans about those potential ideas, and we have another meeting with a community group right after this meeting to talk further. So yes, absolutely, and oftentimes people who drive the corridors every day can sometimes spot things that others can't, and so yes, we have a lot of avenues for feedback, and we're taking them all very seriously.
Thank you.
We have a motion and we have a second. Any additional comments? All right, please vote. Item number 7 is approved 10-0. Takes us to item number 8. Mr. Thomas.
Good afternoon, committee members. So this first item here is to authorize an increase in expenditures for Construction Zone Enhanced Enforcement Program, or otherwise known as COZE, for the State Route 91 Corridor Improvement Project for an additional $400,000 for a total not to exceed of $5.5 million. You may recall back in June of this year, we brought an item to the Commission to utilize $400,000 in contingency that was allocated, as well as an increase of $400,000 in additional budget for a total of $800,000 for COZE. That was based on anticipated being completed with the project by this month. With the delay that we're looking at to next February timeframe approximately, we do need additional COZE for the project. We've estimated that at $400,000, and that's the purpose of this request. So staff is requesting approval of this item to increase the COZE budget by $400,000.
Thank you very much. Any questions, concerns? All right, thank you, Mr. Thomas. We'll entertain a motion. We have a motion by City of Norco, second by City of Paris. Please vote. Come on, there we go. That takes us to item number 9, and by Mr. Thomas.
I need a vote from District 5, please.
I assume this is your item, sir? Supervisor Ashley, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you, sir. Me too. Item number 9, Mr. Thomas.
Okay.
Item
this
8,
item
excuse
is-
me, item 8 passes 10-0. Go ahead, thank you.
This is a new agreement, item number 9, with the City of Corona for maintenance of new city streets prior to the transfer of title as part of the State Route 91 Corridor Improvement Project in an amount not to exceed $25,000. There are two instances where new portions of 2nd Street and Bolero Road in the City of Corona have been completed by the contractor that are subject to one or more continuing eminent domain actions. Therefore, transfer of title to the city may not happen for as much as a year. Currently, the contractor has been maintaining these streets. However, upon achievement of project completion by the contractor, the commission must grant relief of maintenance for the streets to the contractor. Because the city is better suited for maintaining local streets, staff has had discussions with the city to enter into a cooperative agreement for the city to accept maintenance for the streets prior to the transfer of title to the city, and subject to reimbursement by the commission for the city's costs. Staff recommends approval of this agreement with the city for maintenance of new city streets prior to transfer of title for a total amount not to exceed $25,000. That concludes my item.
Presentation. Thank you. Any questions? Concerns? No. We have a motion by City of Harupa Valley, second by Moreno Valley. Please vote.
I need a vote from Norco, please.
Item number 9 passes 10-0. Item number 10, Ms. Castillo.
Good afternoon. The item before you is the approval of this construction agreement for the Paris Valley Line Platform Canopies project. The Paris Valley Line is a 24-mile extension of the 91 Metrolink service and began operation in June of 2016. Platform canopies were included in the design plans but were ultimately deleted due to cost constraints. However, canopy foundations and anchor bolts were installed as part of the PVL project construction. After the PVL completion, grant funds were identified and PVL platform canopies plans were repackaged as the PVL platform canopy project. The project proposes to install 7 canopies at 3 separate stations: Hunter Park, Moreno Valley March Field, and the South Paris Station. On October 5th, the Commission advertised an invitation for bids, IFB, for the construction of the project. A public notice was advertised in the Press Enterprise, and a complete IFB was posted on the Commission's Planet Bids website. On November 7th, 4 bids were received and publicly opened. The bids range from $2.1 million to $2.4 million, and the engineer's estimate was $1.9 million. The basis for award for a public works contract is the lowest responsive and responsible bidder as defined by the Commission's procurement policy and state law. After analyzing the bids, staff concluded that Dalkey & Sons bid amount of $2,078,000 was the lowest responsive and responsible bid received for the project. Since the lowest responsible bid is higher than the engineer's estimate, the bids were analyzed for any irregularities or omissions. It was determined that the higher cost was spread throughout most of the bid items and not likely due to any issues with bid documents, but reflective of an upward trend that has been observed in prices in general. Given that a portion of the project will take place in the fully operational Metrolink stations, operational continuity and customer safety, access, service, and convenience are of utmost importance. Staff has worked to minimize the risk of customer interference by fully defining scope and ensuring the plan set is completely and thoroughly reviewed for constructability. As a rule, a contingency rate of 10% is used for construction contracts. If complications should arise, the contingency is not adequate, contractual and budget issues could delay the project and prevent work from being completed in a timely manner. Consequently, staff is recommending a contingency amount of 15% of the total project amount, or approximately $312,000. This amount is in reserve and is not guaranteed to the contractor. In addition to the award of the construction contract with Dalkey & Sons, approval for additional funds in the amount of $475,000
is needed for railroad flagging services to be provided by Metrolink. The cost of these services will be paid for by the contractor and reimbursed by the commission as a pass-through cost, and no markup for these fees will be allowed. The funding for the project is comprised of FTA Section 5307 grant funds and 2009 Measure A rail funds. Staff intends to use the FTA grant funds to the maximum extent possible. This concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions? No? I'll entertain a motion. Item number 10. Moved by the City of Paris, seconded by the City of Hurpa Valley. Please vote. Thank you, Ms. Castillo. That concludes our regular items for today. Are there any commissioners that have any announcements, staff reports, items of questions, concerns? I had a question. I was curious if we were doing any advertising or PR related to the Festival of Lights with respect to Metrolink.
We are doing a lot of advertising related to the Festival of Lights. In fact, over the weekend, we had 2,400 riders on our trains going to Festival of Lights. The shuttle system worked pretty well. So we are doing a lot of advertising. Sheldon, do you have any specifics that you could share? Last year, there were so many people using the trains for Festival of Lights, people were ending up stuck on the platform without a train to get on. So this year, Sheldon and his team put a lot of effort into making sure we had capacity.
We've been working very selectively with Metrolink, OCTA, and LA Metro. They've all been doing a big push on social media, all the websites. We've also done, I believe, some Facebook ads that are out there. So we're doing a broad reach, getting it out there. The Mission Inn has been posting our information, and they even sent out a tweet, I believe, today highlighting that the Metrolink trains are an option for them as well. They had a tremendous success on their opening night. It was just, a really well-attended, well-run event for us. So we're doing really well with it. So we expect more riders next year as we come off the holiday weekend.
Good deal. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheldon.
No problem. Thanks.
I heard only positive.
Yeah, it's really good.
I'm sorry, Corona. He's calling on Paris. Do you have a flyer you can send us an email?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll send you one. Here's some right now.
Yeah, we can do that.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Would you care for one? That's all I have.
Thank you very much. The lovely councilwoman from Corona.
I just wanted to, again, that the comments have been very, very positive on the Festival of Lights. And, it is one of the biggest events here in the area during this time of year. And I was holding my breath that we wouldn't have the same issues as last year. And people who rode last year that got stuck were afraid to get back on, and I convinced them that we've worked on it. So thank you for making us look good this year.
You're welcome. City of Norco, and then our executive director.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. On December the 9th, which is Saturday, we have our annual Parade of Lights in Norco. We have, it's all horse-drawn vehicles. Our tractors can pull floats, but we have a full day of festivities up at the Ingalls Park, starting out with breakfast with Santa, then they have games for the kids, and at dark, the parade starts. I believe this is the 10th annual, so if you don't have anything else to do that day, it's a fun day and a fun evening. And thank you.
So commissioners, just a couple of reminders. If you haven't done so already, if you could get your committee appointment requests turned in to the clerk so she can start getting ready for 2018. Also, your workshop forms regarding whether you're attending your meal choice and whether or not you need a room for the workshop, those are due as well by December 11th. And this is a big month for Norco because December 6th, next Wednesday at 9:30 in the morning, we'll be there for the I-15 groundbreaking. So get out your cowboy boots and cowboy hats. We're going to Norco. Thank you very much.